welcome back to the channel. Whew. So, I've recently just started hearing about, these riots in the UK, people being very upset with immigrants. I heard something that happened to some innocent children that really sparked a lot of chaotic riots going on right now, which when I looked at that, I was more in disbelief because even though everywhere has their problems, I didn't see that happening in the UK. I'm used to that always happening in America. Some type of just racial or like you're used to that all the time in America. So I didn't know that that was even going on until I started to see videos pop up. I'm like, hold on, that's happening right now. People are going to chaos. It reminded me of like 2016 in America almost, with like Ferguson and all that stuff that was happening. But we're gonna dive deep into it and learn more about what exactly is going on. So this video was titled "Far Right Riots Grip the UK." What next? With that being said, we're smoking all my dragons. Divine righteous, almighty, great, overachieving, never slacking. And we're gonna get to this. Here we go.
This video is brought to you by Nebula. For the past few days, the UK has been gripped by violent anti-immigrant riots after the stabbing of 3 young girls in the northern English town of Southport, which was followed by a slew of social media posts
Let's stop it right there. Rest in power to those 3 young girls. Let's stop it right there. When the children are harmed, that triggers different because it's already such a bad enough world that when you hear something bad happens to kids, especially if it's from people that came from somewhere else, then yeah, that's gonna trigger something in the community. That's gonna trigger a lot of, what?
northern English town of Southport, which was followed by a slew of social media posts falsely claiming the perpetrator was a Muslim asylum seeker. While Prime Minister Keir Starmer quickly signalled that he would be taking a hardline stance towards the riots, warning of swift and strict sentences, at the time of writing, violence is continuing to spiral as rioters square off against counter-protesters, who have apparently also resorted to violence on at least one occasion. So in this video, we're going to have a look at the unrest that's currently engulfing the UK, why it's so difficult for the government, and what might happen next. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and
Original link in the description if you guys want to check out his channel.
be notified when we release new videos. Anyway, caveats aside, we're going to structure this video by going through the events of the past few weeks chronologically, and then explain why it puts the government in a difficult spot. You might think it would be natural to start this story with the attacks we saw in Southport last week, because that's been the immediate trigger of the riots we've seen over the last couple of days. But the UK has actually been struggling with higher than usual amounts of civil unrest for most of July, and this has played into the riots we've seen over the last couple of days. On July the 19th, riots broke out in East London between 2 groups of Bangladeshi men who were on different sides of the ongoing protests in Bangladesh. Police tried to intervene but ended up getting caught in the crossfire and 2 officers were injured. In the same day, riots broke out in Leeds after social workers and police took 4 Roma children into care. Their removal was resisted by both the family and the local community, and riots broke out that evening, with a bus set on fire and a police car overturned. There was then further unrest for the next 2 nights, and in the end West Yorkshire Police just withdrew, claiming that their presence was actually fueling the unrest. Then a couple of days later, on July the 25th, there were anti-police protests in Manchester after footage released.
It's just crazy because I had no idea this was going on. No idea. And man, oh man, just not good.
On social media showed a police officer kicking a 19-year-old man, Mohammed Fahir, in the face as he...
And that's just going to trigger more. That triggers more. It's ongoing negativity that's just creating a snowball effect of more negativity and more division because here's the thing. When stuff happens, right, there's a lot of people who already walk around with a lot of hate and a lot of animosity. And when something happens where it's like, okay, now they can channel that hatred. For a lot of people, it may not even really be about them little girls. They may just have hate in their heart and just want to, yes, now this is my reason. Justified reason when it comes to little girls, but at the same time, you still want to think about, you always, I was told, never make important decisions when you're angry. And that's what happened here. Right.
He lay prone on the ground. The protest didn't turn violent, but the police were forced to barricade themselves into the station. CCTV footage released a week or so later would show that the man assaulted the police beforehand. We mention these events because many figures on the right or far right...
Now, if you assault the police and you get your head kicked in, I mean, don't assault the police. Don't assault anybody. Anybody. But, and I'm not saying it's okay for a police officer to kick anyone's head in, but it's not okay for someone to assault a police officer either. So, yeah, once again, it just creates all this divisive, you're right, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're right, ongoing chaos.
Right of the British political spectrum, including perhaps most notably the founder of the anti-Islam English Defence League, Tommy Robinson, were already complaining before the Southport attacks that this upsurge in unrest was proof that the police had, in some sense, lost control, or engaging in what's sometimes called two-tier policing. Basically, two-tier policing is a theory that the UK police treat certain groups more generously than others. This became a real talking point in right-wing circles after October the 7th, when various commentators argued that the police were being more lenient towards pro-Palestine protesters than the counter-protesters. Certain commentators started claiming that the police's apparent passivity in these recent events was proof that the so-called white working class are policed especially harshly. So, you get the point. Parts of the far right were already angry before the Southport attacks on July the 29th, when a 17-year-old male killed 3 young girls between the ages of 6 and 9 and stabbed 10 other people. Even though it later emerged that the perpetrator was born in the UK to Rwandan immigrants, a false rumour quickly started circulating on...
Dang, see, so... And this is why it makes more sense to never make important decisions when you're angry, because... you can accidentally burn your own castle down when you act off impulse. Because now this whole narrative of immigrants, and the person wasn't even an immigrant. And then there's people who already may have an agenda to target immigrants. They're going to feed off that. So, it reminds me of, if you guys ever seen the movie The Godfather, right? Sonny, the Godfather, his son, they were in a meeting with other mob members, and his son kept speaking out, when he wasn't supposed to. He kept opening his mouth every time he was triggered. And what that showed the other members was that their family was weak. And that's what gave them really the confidence and the confirmation to make their move later on and shoot up the Godfather. Because they seen that weakness, that weak link. You have to think, and you cannot make important decisions when you are angry all the time. Now, if it's like there's people coming to hurt you in your village, and that bell is ringing, that's different. That's defense. But when you see something happen, you can't, okay, let's target everybody now because this person was and the whole time it's falsely claimed. Imagine how many wars have happened, how many things have happened because the false narrative was painted, and no one sat there to think and say, okay, this doesn't represent that whole, that was somebody who was born here, raised here.
Online that he was a Muslim asylum seeker called Ali al-Shakati, which was apparently started by a Russian-linked fake news website and then propagated by Russia Today, Russia's state-owned news network. The day after the attacks, far-right groups descended on the town and immediately attacked a mosque in the town centre. Again, despite the fact that the attacker had no known links to Islam, and despite the fact that their presence was opposed by most of the local community, as evidenced by comments by the victims' parents who asked rioters to stop, and the vast number of locals who turned up to help rebuild the mosque the next morning. When the police intervened, the rioters...
I'm not religious. I'm not a religious individual. Very spiritual, but I'm not religious. But I respect people's beliefs. I respect those around me as long as they're not hurting anybody and they're just, they really are peaceful and they're maneuvering in a respectful manner. I respect, everybody should have the burning down that mosque or doing what they did was wrong. It was wrong.
Turned on them, injuring 53 officers and setting fire to a police van. These far-right riots then spread to cities across the UK, including London, Belfast and Manchester. While the number involved in these riots have so far been pretty limited, most of them had well under 1,000 people, the violence incurred has been unprecedented. A hotel housing asylum seekers in Rotherham was set alight. Nearly 100 police officers have been injured and over 250 people have so far been arrested. Even politicians that you might expect to be more sympathetic to the riots have been spooked by their scale. Nigel Farage, for instance, who was accused of fueling the unrest after he suggested the state was, quote, withholding information in the aftermath of the Southport attacks, released a statement on Monday describing the violence as appalling and even floated deploying the army to reinstate the peace. Worryingly, the riots have invited counter-protests. Some of these have been peaceful, but some of them, in places like Blackburn, have turned violent, which risks creating a vicious cycle where rioters respond to violence by counter-protesters with more violence ad infinitum. So what can the government do here? Well, in a speech on Thursday, Starmer signalled that he'd be taking a hardline stance against the protesters, promising harsh sentences, a new anti-riot police task force, and possibly criminal behaviour orders to restrict the movement of rioters, as happened with football hooligans. This is unsurprising, given Starmer oversaw the sentencing of rioters after the London riots in 2011, and it's probably the government's best chance at quelling the unrest. However, there are two caveats worth mentioning here. First, as we mentioned in our other videos, the UK genuinely doesn't have that many prison spaces left, and if the government wants to incarcerate thousands of rioters, it'll need to release other inmates. Second, if counter-protests turn violent, Starmer will have to make...
Could you imagine if their government started to, take some of those protesters and ship them to American prisons? It would be like back in the day all over again. Just crazy, crazy, crazy.
Sure that the law is seen to be applied consistently. If it's not, this will only fuel talk of two-tier policing on the right and possibly even fuel further riots. But even once the violence has been quelled, Starmer will still be left with a whole load of more difficult long-term questions to answer, relating to disinformation on social media, the renewed threat of the far right in the UK, the political risks of the UK's current immigration policies, and the ongoing prisons crisis. Keep diving deeper into this and other news stories over on Nebula, where the TLDR team curates the most important news videos from around the world, saving you from a deluge of bad news and helping you pay attention to what really matters. That means no more feeling out of touch. On Nebula News, the TLDR team acts as your guide through the media landscape, sharing the news we're paying attention to, helping you find stories that matter and avoiding burnout. If you don't know already, Nebula is the streaming service that we co-own with a bunch of your favourite creators. There you can watch original content like Real Life Law's incredible series War Room, which every month runs you through a whole load of ongoing conflicts, keeping you in the loop. You can also watch every TLDR video on Nebula ad-free, and in many instances before they land on YouTube. If you're not a member already, then click the link in the description to sign up now. If you do, you'll get 40% off an annual plan by using our link. Plus, Nebula will know you came from us, which really helps us out. We've got some really great feedback from existing members, so I hope you enjoy all the effort we're going to with Nebula News.
Whew. So that's a chain reaction of just bad events. A lot of narratives being painted, and yeah, that's not good at all. Man, see the problem with stuff like that is it reminds me of, being a so-called Black American. We've been through a lot over here when it comes to, we always going through something when it comes to a narrative being painted. And when you look at like California in the 1980s, the gangs, they had a peace treaty, peace treaty between the Bloods and the Crips. And there was still drive-bys happening. So the Bloods and the Crips, when they came together, they ended up finding out it was police doing it to instigate and keep the beefs going. Now, I'm not saying that any of this situation is something like I'm not throwing no conspiracy out there. What I'm saying is think before you act. Analyze the situation before you act off impulse. Even as sad as the situation is, as traumatic as the situation is with girls getting harmed, children getting harmed, you still, especially as an adult, have to be responsible enough, especially when you're dealing with a community of people, different communities of people. You have to be a true leader. A true leader is going to analyze the situation. A true leader is going to make the proper decision to protect his people. Sometimes getting out there and just losing your head and let's go to war, that's not always the smartest decision at all. You have to be able to read between the lines and to see things from every angle. But if you're always quick, it's once again, I could use another example with the Godfather, how they tricked Sonny into his death when his daughter, excuse me, not his daughter, his sister was in a domestic abusive relationship, and they set it up to make it look like she needed help. And long story short, he came rushing without thinking, and he fell into a trap. So when you quick to be impulsive and angry, and I'm rushing out there, it's easy to be trapped. Very easy to be trapped. And to the people of the UK, my message as an American looking from the outside, looking in, would be to just don't be a puppet. Don't always fall for narratives all the time. Sit back, use your brain, use your intuition, and really come up with the best solutions in order to move forward to protect your people. Don't just be so quick to be a puppet, right? Because a lot of people in history have been used, civilizations have been destroyed, all type of stuff because people wanted to act off impulse and blame others. It's like the movie The Warriors, based out of New York City. You had Cyrus. He was shot and killed. When Cyrus was shot and killed, it was a setup. The one gang, they said it was the Warriors. The Warriors did it. So every gang in New York City that was there, they thought the Warriors did it. And every gang in New York City was trying to take out the Warriors. Whole time it wasn't even the Warriors. But when you got people, you always got those people who are stubborn and just they just see red. They just want violence, and any situation is like, yes, it's a situation where they're able to spread their hatred now and to activate that hatred inside. It doesn't even have anything to do with the actual situation. That's the cover up. They just want a reason to be a beast, to be a Neanderthal. They want a reason to hurt people, to go wreck something. They may just have a hole in their heart of trauma, and so. And then there's a lot of people who are just followers. We need more leaders in this world, guys. I'm talking to the human race at this point. I'm not even talking just the UK, the human race at this point. Whoever watches this video, we need more leaders. We need more thinkers, more people that just are able to actually tap into their mind, because the mind is all. And if you can't use that, then you'll be tricked every time. So with that being said, you know, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. And just want to say I wish you all the best. I wish everybody safety out there. To all my UK subscribers, I wish you all safety. And I hope you guys figure out a solution for what's going on. With that being said, if you want more videos like this, definitely hit that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get off this. Much love, y'all.